Okay, so many years ago, in a dim and distant past, there was a horror film called The Strangers, which was written and directed by Brian Bettino. And it was one of those films, it didn't cost very much money, but it ended up taking a huge amount of money. It ended up taking something like $92 million. So it took like 8 times what it cost to make. So it was a huge hit. And it was, one of those people are threatened by, people come into the house wearing masks, and it's all horrible. And at the time, the writer-director said that he was inspired by the stories of the Manson murders and by reading Helter Skelter. And you know what I feel about that, which is, if nobody ever makes another movie that are inspired by the Manson murders, I will be perfectly happy. Although we know that Quentin Tarantino is apparently working on something that is...
that's always something to look for.
Always something to look forward to. Anyway, they said immediately after Strangers was finished, because it had made so much money, they said, oh, well, we're going to do a sequel, because inevitably they're going to do a sequel. And then it didn't happen, then it didn't happen, then it didn't happen. And then a decade later, we now get the sequel, which is scripted by Bettino and Ben Katai. So Bettino is the original director. This now directed by Johannes Roberts. It opens with, one of those kind of based on true events things. So family with a difficult daughter and a marginally less difficult son are going on a trip because they're going to send the daughter to a boarding school because something's happened and, they can't deal with it anymore, so they're going to send her to a boarding school. They are going to a trailer park where aunt and uncle live. They turn up late because they left late, and when they get there, there is just a note on the door which says, we'll see you in the morning, go to trailer number 57. They go to trailer number 57, the girl and boy go out for a walk, and they come back screaming blue murder.
Where are we?
I don't know.
Come from that way? No.
I don't know. It all looks the same.
Yeah, okay.
Jesus.
Guys, what the hell is going on?
Uncle Marvin, Aunt Cheryl are all cut up and there's blood everywhere.
Okay, this is some kind of a joke.
It's not some kind of a joke. I swear I would not joke about this.
Okay, where was this? Where did you see this?
In one of the trailers. One of the trailers was open and we went inside. I'm not messing with you, I swear.
He's not. We both swear.
They're all cut up.
Okay, get Kinsey back in the trailer.
What?
Take Kinsey back to the trailer.
Okay.
Call the police. And lock the door, okay? Do you know how to get back there?
Yeah.
Can you show me?
Yeah, I think so. Can we get from there?
Can I make a guess?
Go on.
When they go back to the trailer, they don't call the police, or they do call the police, and the police don't come in time.
Yeah, well, okay. So,
Roughly.
In a way, you're kind of overthinking it.
Okay.
So essentially, they're in, they're in an empty trailer park. It's the middle of nowhere. It's the middle of the night. There's sort of moody, misty, and there are characters walking around with masks, walking very slowly, carrying knives, doing unspeakable things. And the weird thing about the film is this: on the one hand, I mean, it's a sequel that has been so long coming that, frankly, I'm not sure anybody was eagerly awaiting it. And in terms of what it does, it's very hard not to feel that we're just retreading old ground, that we've seen all this before. We've seen this kind of just this relentless progression, and it's nothing new. And there is something about it that feels terribly cynical and terribly secondhand. That said, there are individual set pieces which are oddly well orchestrated. And one of the things that's quite frustrating about the film is that every now and then it does something that you think, oh, actually, that's an interesting thing you've done. That you've taken that set piece and you twisted it in a way that I hadn't expected you to do. And there's one particular thing. One of the things that the motifs of the film is kind of the 80s throwback vibe, which we've seen in things like Guest and It Follows, and actually done better to some extent. But there is this sort of soft pop rock soundtrack which is going on diegetically in the truck, so that all these violent events are playing out against these completely incongruous pop songs, which I suppose the classic example that would be Stuck in the Middle with You in Reservoir Dogs.
Steelers Wheel.
Yeah, but it's actually it's done quite well. And there is one sequence which takes place in a swimming pool, in which the sound keeps coming and going as the people who are fighting keep going under the water and coming back up from the water. And so much of what makes a horror film work often is to do with the soundscape. It's to do with the way that the sound creates the world or immerses you in the world. And, so there are moments when I was watching it thinking, actually, that is a well orchestrated set piece. You've put those pieces together in an interesting way that I hadn't expected, and I'm kind of slightly sold on it. the problem then is the sort of overall disappointment of it feels just kind of grindingly, we have been here before, we know what this story is, it's not surprising us structurally, it just feels like it's there because, you know, we can do this efficiently and we can do a couple of changes to the stuff that you perhaps expect from a genre movie, but nothing more. So I found it an oddly frustrating experience, and it's one of those classic cases in which, you know, there's a nastiness and a cynicism to it, which is not necessarily a bad thing for a horror film, but in this case, I didn't think worked in its favour. But it's weird when you see something and you think, you know, I can see something in there, and that's actually making it worse, because if I couldn't see the flashes of the individual set pieces that are working, I would find this much easier to deal with.
What's it called again?
It's called Strangers Pray at Night. Strangers, Pray at Night. Prey, obviously.